Is there a more specific type of heartbreak in the world of sports fandom than watching the perfect trade target, the exact puzzle piece your team desperately needs, suddenly get pulled off the table just as the rumors were starting to make sense? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We need to have a very serious, somewhat sobering conversation about the Montreal Canadiens and the upcoming trade deadline, because the narrative we have been building over the last week has just hit a massive concrete wall. We all allowed ourselves to get excited. We looked at the connection between the Calgary Flames and the Montreal Canadiens, and we zeroed in on one name, Blake Coleman. It felt perfect, didn't it? A two-time Stanley Cup champion, a guy with grit, a guy who knows how to win ugly games. But according to the latest insider bombshell from TSN's Darren Dreger, we might need to tear up that script and start from scratch. Let's contextualize why this hurts. The Montreal Canadiens are currently an anomaly in the National Hockey League. Historically, we are used to this team struggling to score, relying entirely on carey price or incredible goaltending to steal 2-1 wins. But this season, the script is flipped. The Habs currently boast the fifth best goals per game average in the entire NHL, sitting pretty at 3.34 goals per night. The offense is humming. The kids are buzzing. Yet, despite this offensive explosion, the front office knows, and we know, that the roster is still unbalanced. We have been linked to Coleman, not because we need more finesse, but because we need that playoff-style backbone. Coleman, despite battling a minor injury, has 21 points in 44 games on a struggling Flames team. He represents the kind of veteran stability that turns a fun team into a dangerous team. However, the reality check delivered by Darren Dreger is brutal. While the Flames are absolutely in sell mode, GM Craig Conroy is apparently drawing a line in the sand regarding Coleman. Dreger's report highlights a crucial element often overlooked in EA sports-style trade proposals: culture. He stated, "You can't trade everybody. You've got to have a backbone on the culture side of your team, and Coleman is definitely that." This is a massive blow to Kent Hughes' strategy. The logic was that Calgary would strip it down to the studs, allowing Montreal to swoop in. Instead, Calgary views Coleman not as an asset to cash in, but as the mandatory chaperone for their own rebuild. This forces us to ask a difficult question about the Canadian strategy. If Plan A was the perfect fit culturally and physically, and that door is now slammed shut, is there a Plan B that doesn't feel like a panic move? The fan base is split right down the middle right now. Half of you are relieved we aren't trading assets for a 30-plus winger, while the other half is terrified that we are going to waste this offensive resurgence by not adding the necessary grit to protect our stars. If the door on Blake Coleman is indeed closed, or at least heavily barricaded, where do the eyes of the Montreal Canadiens turn next? This is where the story shifts from a simple trade rumor to a complex analysis of roster construction and salary cap management. The irony of the situation is palpable. We are hunting for a forward, yet the Flames might be offering us the one thing the statistics say we actually need more: defense. While our offense is top 5 in the league, our defensive metrics are, to put it mildly, a disaster. The Canadiens are currently bottom 10 in the NHL for goals allowed per game. We are scoring like the 1980s Oilers, but defending like an expansion team. This brings us to the two alternative names floating in the Calgary ether: Rasmus Andersson and Nazem Kadri. Let's break this down with the cold, hard logic of a general manager. Rasmus Andersson is the logical pivot. He is a defenseman, he is out of contract in the summer, and he is almost certainly leaving Calgary. Acquiring him would stabilize a blue line that often looks chaotic. It addresses the statistical reality of the team's struggles. But does it address the emotional need? The fans want a top 6 forward. They want excitement. A rental defenseman feels like a safe move, not a transformative one. Then, there is the nuclear option, Nazem Kadri. This is where the expansion protocol of our analysis needs to look at the long-term financial health of the franchise. Kadri is a center, he plays with an edge, and he has that villainous streak that Montreal has lacked since the days of Corey Perry or even Claude Lemieux. But look at the contract. Kadri is 34 years old and is on the books until the summer of 2029. 2029. In NHL years, that is a lifetime away. If Kent Hughes trades for Kadri, he isn't just making a move for this playoffs. He is marrying a 34-year-old center to the salary cap for the next 4 years. The debate among the fan base regarding Kadri is fascinating. One faction argues, we need a second-line center now, Suzuki needs help. The other side looks at the long-term implications and screams, do not anchor this rebuild with another unmovable contract. Remember the pain of the Carl Alzner deal? Remember the difficulty in moving Brendan Gallagher's contract? Trading for Kadri risks repeating history. Sure, he brings immediate offense and grit, but if his play declines at age 36 or 37, that $7 million cap hit becomes a tombstone on the team's ability to sign the young core like Slavkovsky, Gull, and Hudson to their big extensions down the road. It is a classic high-risk gamble. Do you mortgage the future flexibility for immediate competency? As we navigate through the fog of these rumors, there is one massive external factor that complicates everything for the Montreal Canadiens: the schedule. We are not operating in a normal timeline this season. We have the NHL trade deadline on March 6th, but sitting right in the middle of our path like a massive roadblock is the Olympic break and the Four Nations face-off. This creates a logistical nightmare known as the roster freeze. Here is the scenario we need to prepare for. The market might go completely dormant until after the games in Italy conclude. Why? Because no general manager in their right mind wants to trade a first-round pick for a star player, only to watch that player blow out a knee playing for Team Canada or Team USA 2 weeks later. This Olympic anxiety might force Kent Hughes to be incredibly patient. And patience, as we know, is a double-edged sword in Montreal. If the Canadiens wait until late February or early March to make a move, they risk falling out of the playoff race entirely during the interim. Picture the scene. It is late February. The team is tired. The defense is leaking goals. We are waiting for the Olympics to end, so we can maybe trade for a backup plan because Coleman wasn't available. The gap in the standings widens. The optimism of the early season fades. That is the danger of inaction. On the flip side, if Hughes strikes now and overpays for a secondary target just to make a splash, he risks looking desperate. The strategy moving forward has to be surgical. If Coleman is the culture captain, Calgary won't move. Montreal must decide if they are buyers who believe in a deep run this year, or if they are still building for the future. This potential pivot away from Coleman and toward a defenseman like Andersson or a heavy contract like Kadri will define the second half of this decade for the Habs. It signals whether we are prioritizing goal prevention Andersson or offensive depth at a high-cost Kadri. My gut tells me that if the price for Coleman is truly untouchable, Hughes might stand pat or look for a smaller, less sexy deal to patch the holes without blowing up the bank. So, here is the question I need you guys to answer in the comments, and I want you to be brutally honest. Knowing that Blake Coleman is likely off the table, what is the play? Do you swing for the fences and take on the massive contract of Nazem Kadri to fix the center depth? Do you pivot to defense and grab Rasmus Andersson to stop the bleeding? Or do you do absolutely nothing, hold on to the picks, and trust the kids? I want to see your armchair GM proposals down below. Can we survive without a trade? Let me know. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoy these deep dives into the trade market, and subscribe so you don't miss the breaking news when the deadline finally hits.